You must confront the terrifying linguistic reality that your thoughts are not formed in a vacuum, but are constructed using the linguistic Legos provided to you by a social structure that benefits from your passivity. This is the essence of neuro-linguistic feudalism. The elite maintain their dominance not through physical walls, but through the encoding of limitation into the common tongue. If you lack the words to describe a phenomenon, you lack the ability to perceive it, and more importantly, the ability to manipulate it. This is the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis weaponized. If your vocabulary for wealth is limited to moralizing pejoratives, greed, filthy rich, lucky, you have effectively installed a firewall in your brain that prevents you from formulating a logical strategy for capital acquisition. You cannot become what you can only describe as a villain. You are a prisoner of your own adjectives. The sovereign architect recognizes that to conquer a new territory, he must first name it. He replaces spending with capital allocation. He replaces problem with structural inefficiency. He replaces boss with temporary client. By changing the nouns, he changes the hierarchy. The most dangerous words in the serf's dictionary are those that imply a static reality. Words like deserve, fair, and normal are the linguistic anchors of the slave class. Deserve is a feudal concept. It implies a higher authority, a lord, a god, a government that sits in judgment and doles out rewards based on compliance. The sovereign rejects deserve and replaces it with cause and effect. He does not deserve $1 million. He creates $1 million of value and captures the spread. Fair is a nursery school fantasy used to paralyze the ambitious. The universe is not fair. It is mathematical. Normal is a statistical average of mediocrity. If you want normal results, use normal words. If you want sovereign results, you must develop a private language, a dialect of power where every word is an action, every sentence is a directive, and every silence is a strategic pause. You must audit your speech for linguistic leakage, the subtle ways you apologize for your space, your time, and your ambition. Every "I'm sorry to bother you" is a microtransaction of status, where you pay the listener in your own dignity. We must analyze the euphemism treadmill. The state and the media use soft words to mask hard realities. They call theft inflation. They call debt stimulus. They call compliance social responsibility. This is semantic masking. When you use their words, you inherit their bias. You begin to think that inflation is a natural weather event rather than a deliberate policy. To break the feudal bond, you must engage in radical nominalism, calling things by their functional names. You don't pay taxes. You fund your own containment. You don't have a job. You rent out your biological hours. This clarity is painful because it strips away the comforting illusions of the middle class, but it is the only way to see the code of the matrix. Once you see that community often just means crab bucket and stability means stagnation, you can no longer be controlled by the emotional triggers attached to those words. You become semantically immune. The ultimate goal of neurolinguistic feudalism is self-censorship. The system doesn't need to ban your thoughts if it can make you feel a physical jolt of shame for even formulating them. This is the inner inquisitor. When you think, "I am superior to those who refuse to work," the inquisitor screams elitist or arrogant. This is a linguistic trap designed to keep the herd level. The sovereign architect dismantles the inquisitor by realizing that morality is often just etiquette for the powerless. He adopts a functional vocabulary where words are judged not by their niceness, but by their utility. Does this word help me build? Does it help me protect? Does it help me perceive? If not, it is deleted. You are rebuilding your mind into a linguistic fortress where only the words that serve your empire are allowed entry. You are no longer a consumer of language. You are a producer of meaning. You must understand that certain phrases in the common tongue are not merely descriptions of reality, but are semantic viruses designed to hijack your prefrontal cortex and trigger a system shutdown the moment you attempt to exert sovereign will. These viruses operate on the principle of implicit guilt. Consider the phrase, "money can't buy happiness." On the surface, it appears to be a benign philosophical observation. In reality, it is a cognitive inhibitor designed to prevent you from pursuing capital with 100% efficiency. It creates a false dichotomy, a low-resolution binary that forces your brain to choose between wealth and well-being. Every time you encounter a financial opportunity, this virus runs in the background, whispering that your success will lead to emotional bankruptcy. The sovereign architect deletes this virus and replaces it with a functional axiom. Money is a tool for the expansion of agency. Happiness is a byproduct of agency. By decoupling these terms, you remove the emotional tax on your ambition. The second lethal virus is the phrase, "don't get your hopes up." This is the anticipatory failure script. It is installed by parents and peers who are terrified of disappointment and who want to domesticate your expectations to match their own limited horizon. This phrase acts as a voltage regulator regulator for your enthusiasm. It prevents you from entering the high-energy state required to manifest a complex reality. If you don't get your hopes up, you don't commit. If you don't commit, you don't achieve. And thus, the virus becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of mediocrity. The sovereign recognizes that hope is actually directed intent. He doesn't get his hopes up, he sets his targets. He replaces the emotional fragility of the serf with the tactical coldness of the sniper. To him, there is no disappointment, only data points for the next iteration. We must also analyze the passive voice victimhood. Observe the language of the serf. The car broke down. I got fired. The market crashed. Notice how the subject is always a passive recipient of external forces. This is linguistic externalization of control. It is a virus that atrophies the responsibility muscle. The sovereign architect uses the active voice of ownership. He says, I failed to maintain the vehicle. I failed to provide enough value to the firm. I failed to hedge against market volatility. This shift is not about self-blame. It is about mapping the levers of power. If you are the cause, you can be the solution. If the world is the cause, you are merely a leaf in a hurricane. By reclaiming the subject position in your sentences, you reclaim the command position in your life. You move from the accusative, life happens to me, to the nominative, I happen to life. Finally, beware the virus of giving back. This is the linguistic anchor of the global guilt complex. The term giving back implies that you took something in the first place, that your success is a form of theft that must be remediated. It frames your productivity as a debt to the collective. This is the social credit system, hidden in a euphemism. The sovereign architect does not give back, he invests forward. He does not apologize for his surplus. He uses it to create more surplus. He understands that the best way to help the poor is to not be one of them, and the best way to serve society is to build an empire that provides value, jobs, and infrastructure. He rejects the language of atonement and adopts the language of expansion. He is not a debtor, he is a creator. Every word out of his mouth is a brick in the wall of his fortress. The final stage of breaking the neuro-linguistic feudal bond is the transition from reactive description to proactive command, a process where you cease using language to comment on the world and start using it to construct a new one. The serf uses language as a shield, to explain, to justify, and to hide. The titan uses language as a sword, to cut, to define, and to build. This is the implementation of performative utterance, a linguistic phenomenon where the act of saying something makes it so. When a judge says, I now pronounce you married, or a king says, I dub thee knight, the reality of the subjects changes instantly because the speaker possesses the authority of the word. You must seize this authority for yourself. You must stop saying, I will try to build a business, and start saying, I am establishing an enterprise. The former is a hope, the latter is a declaration of a present fact. Your brain cannot commit to a try, but it can organize resources around an establishment. You must master the linguistic audit of efficiency. Every word that does not contribute to the structural integrity of your vision is entropy and must be purged. This includes the modifiers of uncertainty. Maybe, perhaps, sort of, kind of, I think. These words are the micro cracks in your foundation through which your power leaks. When you use them, you are signaling to the audience and your own subconscious that you are not in full possession of your intent. A titan speaks in absolute vectors. He does not say, maybe we should pivot. He says, we are pivoting. He does not say, I think I'm worth more. He says, my rate is X. Precision of language is the hallmark of the sovereign. The more precise your words, the more precise your reality. If your vocabulary is blurry, your life will be blurry. You are not working on a project. You are executing a mandate. You are not stressed. You are processing high-load data. By relabeling your internal states, you change your biological response to them. Stress triggers cortisol. High-load data triggers focus. We must then implement the semantic wall of privacy. In the feudal system, the serf is transparent to the lord. His life, his debts, and his fears are all public record. The sovereign, however, is opaque. You must learn the art of linguistic obfuscation for the protection of your assets. You do not volunteer information. You do not vent your frustrations to those who cannot solve them. Venting is a low-status behavior that seeks emotional validation at the expense of strategic advantage. Every time you complain, you are giving away intelligence about your vulnerabilities. A titan's speech is need to know. He uses silence as a weapon of negotiation, understanding that the one who speaks the most is usually the one who is the most desperate for approval. By withholding words, you increase the market value of the words you eventually choose to release. Your speech should be like a gold-backed currency, rare, heavy, and impossible to ignore. Finally, you must draft your own internal constitution. This is a set of linguistic hard codes that govern your behavior regardless of your emotions. These are if-then statements for your soul. If I feel fear, then I increase the intensity of the attack. If I face a setback, then I initiate the recovery protocol. By coding these responses into your language, you remove the decision fatigue that kills most men. You no longer have to decide to be brave. You have already coded brave as the only possible output for the input fear. You are turning your mind into an automated sovereign entity. You are no longer a serf waiting for instructions from the environment. You are the environment. You are the architect. You are the word, and the word is power.